ShadowHunters Season 2, Episode 2 is in full effect. Now, last week, we pretty much had the premiere, right? Everybody pretty much knows this. The changes pretty much have synced in. So, did the changes pretty much affect this episode? Is it still going strong for what I see? And here's the thing about that. People are going to be kind of saying the season's changing it up. And that's true. Absolutely, completely true. But you're not really going to get the full effect of the changes that started in the premiere until maybe about Episode 5. It's kind of like a woman being impregnated. You have to give it time to really sink in. So that's just kind of the case to me, just in general. So let's talk about ShadowHunters Season 2, Episode 2, because this was actually a pretty good episode. Some things actually got advanced. Relationships got fleshed out. Some people actually got more screen time than they ever had, just to begin with. So let's get into this. Jocelyn, which is pretty much Clary's mother, obviously, pretty much had the most screen time she's ever had by far in this entire series, pretty much, for the most part. Because obviously, pretty much the scene, she had the pilot. And then she pretty much was sleeping on her ass for at least the next, 12 episodes or so, whatever it may be. But she actually had the most stuff probably to do in this entire episode. And I thought it was actually good to kind of flesh her out. And actually seeing her acting, you can kind of tell that she's actually one of the better actors out there. Now, there were some times where I definitely could see that she's definitely Clary's mom, because her acting wasn't the greatest. But I actually thought it was actually quite good. Now, this episode pretty much kicked off with Jace and Valentine kind of pretty much escaping from last week. And I thought that conversation was actually quite good because Valentine actually had a point. He pretty much was saying that, even though I was hurt and wounded, you could have easily have given me up. You could have given me to the clave. You could have done whatever you wanted to me. You could have left me in Mexico and just drugged me, whatever it may be. It didn't matter. But for some reason, he actually managed to save him. And I think he was actually completely correct, Valentine, in that regard. I think Jace, even though he's a badass Shadowhunter that crosses his arms and wear tight black leather, the guy just wants his dad back. He just wants his daddy. He's got dad issues, which is pretty much the case for everybody probably in this damn show, really enough. But I actually thought that was actually pretty good. And Valentine I actually thought did pretty well in this episode. And I was not on the guy, but I actually thought he actually did quite good and actually seemed a little bit sinister, a little bit sneaky, a little bit slimy for the most part. But I actually thought he seemed like a villain here and not just kind of like some douchebag, whatever. But either way, the next thing we kind of could talk about is the argument between Clary and her mom, pretty much. As I said, Jocelyn had a lot of screen time in this episode. I thought the Jocelyn and Clary argument was actually quite good because obviously Jocelyn had her reasons for trying to take her shots at Jace, but for the most part, Clary is also correct. She probably could have told her and gave her the heads up because, let's be real here, what if she would have missed? Maybe she would have shot Clary. Maybe she would have shot Simon. The argument or whatever it may be was actually quite good because that's about the only time other than probably the first episode, I believe, that they actually had a long, standing talk just to begin with. So I thought that was actually good, even though Simon was kind of in that awkward position just to begin with. And, nobody really wants to be in that awkward position. But we actually eventually learned that pretty much Valentine kind of drugged Jocelyn and then tested demon blood on her. And that's pretty much how that went. Now she gets the revelation that Jace pretty much got last week. Now, my thought was this. So are you telling me that because the way they say experiment in here, I feel like it's just another form for rape. And I was just thinking, is Jace a rape baby? Because that kind of seems like the way they were going with the dialogue in here. And everybody keeps saying they experimented on us, which is kind of like a different way of saying they raped you. They kind of did something that you didn't want them to do, if you really think about it. So I thought that was actually kind of an interesting way to kind of speak about this. But also, yeah, I actually thought that was actually quite good. Alec and Clary had their talks also. A lot of talking in this episode, but good talking. Alec and Clary pretty much had their thing, and I don't know what it was, but this dude kind of put her down. I mean, he put her down some sort of murderer on death row. That dude was just going completely down. Now, for me, I found Alec a little bit of a dick in this episode. I don't know about anybody else. Now, not a bigger, a British dick like Aldertree, but I thought this dude was pretty much a dick. Now, he kind of put Clary in her place, saying, you pretty much ruined everything. I lost my paper tie, Izzy got in trouble, whatever it may be, family, whatever. Everything just kind of went to shit. And then Clary kind of did, what? She did her face, whatever. And eventually, Alec, that was just a little bit of a dick move. Now, I don't know if Shadowhunters, particularly male Shadowhunters, kind of have that time of month, but he was definitely kind of stressed out for the most part in this episode, and I thought it was a little bit something. Even, Izzy had to kind of tell him about it for the most part. Also, some other things that I really liked in this episode was one of the underrated stuff, just in general. Now, people talk about the bromance between Simon and Luke's. People talk about the paper tie between, Jason, Alec. People even talk about Magnus and Alec, Malik. But there was none of that this episode, pretty much, for the most part. We actually had something that I think is actually one of the more underrated, the relationships in the show, which is pretty much Izzy and Clary. I thought their conversation was actually really good because it showed that these guys, or these girls really, are sisters. They're buddies, whatever it may be. And they actually worked out very well. Now, the music actually worked very well into the scene, but also it kind of I don't know if anybody else thought this. It showed how much they mean to each other, but it also kind of was like, okay, I don't know what it is with the music and kind of like the dialogue. They saying like, you always have me or whatever. I was just like, are they going to make a lesbian relationship with these two? Because I feel like that's the way they're kind of going. I thought Izzy was going to take off her shirt, and then we really was going to get that Shadowhunters, the extended cut, if you know what I mean. You know what I mean? You might. But yeah. Anyways, but that's my thought on that. I thought that was actually pretty good, their conversation between them, because I feel like it's one of the more underrated things on the show. People talk about, like I said, the bromance between everybody else on the show, but they have one of the more better things, just to begin with. I like the smaller character moments. A couple other things is that, pretty much all the tree, up to his evil ways. Now, I don't know what it is, but everything the guy says just sounds evil, right? And maybe it's the British accent. Like, just picture this, right? I can say, I want your apple. But if all the tree would have said, I want your apple, it's going to sound a little bit more sinister. Now, just picture anything, being said in an American voice and saying in the British voice. It sounds a lot more sinister. But I know the guy's just doing his job. He pretty much tells Simon to pretty much go looking into vampire stuff or whatever it may be. Eventually, Raphael kind of comes back, and that's kind of cool. Raphael's always fun to watch, even though he's a little bit over the top. Now, the thing with Simon, just in general, is just that from the wolves to Raphael, it kind of was like Simon being bullied in high school, kind of going the other way to get home, past the bullies, and then eventually seeing Raphael kind of telling him, give me your lunch money. I thought that was actually interesting, and then eventually Magnus even tells him to kind of like man up. So eventually we're going to get, Camille back, so that should be interesting to see, but eventually Magnus and Simon kind of have their, tag on relationship, which is, I think, one of the first few times they had it. That was fun. We had snakes, we had powers, we had whatever it may be, and we actually got a little bit of a sense of the behind the scenes of what Magnus actually truly is, because he pretty much said when he was younger, nobody really taught him how to use powers, but now he's going to kind of, teach someone if they actually need it. So that was a little bit of an insight inside Magnus's background. He's not only the comedic guy, he's got a little bit of a deep side to him. So that was actually pretty good just to begin with. Eventually, Clary, right, she sneaks out because she wants to be a rebel without a cause, or in case she actually did have a cause, she wants to go painting and drawing or whatever. And once she does sneak out, I thought the editing or whatever may be the picture quality was actually quite good when they actually had Clary's hair, right? And you've probably seen it amongst, which is very bright red or orange, whatever, amongst the blandness of the gray. I thought that was very good because her hair usually is quite bright, and it actually showed. So I thought that was actually pretty good. Dot eventually pretty much comes back, with veins across her face, and eventually kind of takes Clary on type of Valentine's ship, and she kind of shows her a vision. I thought the vision was actually quite brutal and disturbing for the most part. And if anybody actually played Mass Effect, I thought it kind of reminded me of Shepard's visions. If you haven't, then you probably think I'm a crazy person. What am I talking about? But either way, I thought that was actually pretty good, and Shadowhunters continues to kind of show that they're going a little bit more darker this season. So I thought that was actually pretty good. Eventually, Clary and Jace, they eventually do kind of escape. Valentine kind of fucks them around a bit. And they have probably one of the biggest epic fails I've ever seen in my life, which is pretty much them trying to go through Dot's portal. But that shit pretty much drops because, Jocelyn gave Alec a stone to kind of like get the bond or whatever really strong. Didn't matter. They eventually fall into the ocean, and that shit is a big fail. A couple of other things is that I enjoyed the Fight Club stuff, even though it kind of amounted really to nothing. Like Izzy and the big brute guy, that was actually kind of fun to see, even though it didn't really amount to anything except Valentine soldiers kind of slitting their throat. So, and also suicide. We're going to suicide on fucking Shadowhunters. But as I said, pretty much the episode ends with them kind of escaping, sort of. They kind of fall in the ocean, and then Valentine pretty much kills the wolf that was pretty much a part of that pack that was kind of bullying Simon. And that's pretty much how this episode ended. Now, I thought it was actually a good episode, not great per se, but still solid. It's like a step under the premiere for the most part. But as long as they keep on going a step under or step above, I think this season is actually going to be pretty good. But like I said, I think the changes have to take some time to really sink into, kind of like a turkey baster. But even though this episode was pretty good, let's see how this actually season goes. Because right now, we're actually on a pretty good start. What was your favorite part of this episode? Let me know. Comment, subscribe, and like. I'm Christmas. Share this video. Just do it. That can be helpful. Just do it. I'm signing out.